as many of you that have been watching me saw, that we have a friend named Martin who showed us a lot of his Halloween collection of serial killer and kind of murder memorabilia. Just kind of a crazy collection, but he was telling me he had a friend that had a really interesting collection as well, and we're going to show it to you today, so I hope you enjoy this. Take a look at what this guy has. So what's the story on this framed piece right here?
So this was one of my very first pieces of memorabilia too. This is a letter from Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and it's very simple. It's just a letter. You know, a lot of people would find it not that appealing, not that exciting. However, the interesting thing about this letter is it was actually quoted in a book, and the letter was written to the author of said book. And the book I'm talking about is this book here called The Last Victim by Jason Moss. And as you can see, the envelope and the letter are made out to him.
Yes, indeed.
And for anybody that's read the book or wants to read the book, if you want to read the contents of the letter a little bit more closely, it's written out verbatim, line for line, in its entirety on page 171.
He included some artwork with his return letter as well.
Yeah, so the bottom is actually a photocopy of something that Jason had sent to Richard.
Oh.
And it's just a little graphic of Richard and AC/DC lyrics that he wrote out under it.
Now, you said they had a crazy story about how he ended up meeting, or how he talked to him?
Yeah, so Jason Moss... the whole thing with this started when he started writing Gacy as, I think it was a high school or a college project. He started corresponding with John Wayne Gacy, and basically he wrote him as from the viewpoint of one of Gacy's ideal victims. So he wanted to appeal to Gacy as somebody that Gacy would have preyed on in order to get certain responses from Gacy that a lot of other people may not have gotten.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was very successful at it. He built a relationship with Gacy. Gacy would call him every single day. Jason ended up going out and visiting Gacy and spending some time with him out there. There's pictures of them together. And then with that, it opened the door for Jason to start writing other serial killers. He wrote Richard Ramirez and a few others. I honestly can't remember the others that he wrote to. I think Henry Lee Lucas might have been one of them, and Charles Manson. But he had a pretty long relationship with Richard Ramirez, and I believe he also went out and visited Richard Ramirez on death row in San Quentin as well.
So it's crazy, as you read it, he's thanking him for sending the money, but then he's also thanking him for telling him about why he went to jail, which was, he says he beat up his girlfriend, and Richard wants to know, like the details of it. Like, did you, like, dislocate her jaw and things like that? It's pretty creepy. There you can see he's mentioning the Hand of Death cult, and then... right over here, he's saying, girl looks like she's enjoying it. Crazy. Right behind your head, I notice you have Jeffrey Dahmer, who right now is like at the top of Netflix.
Hey, oh, yeah.
What is that? Can you talk about that?
So that right there is, that's just his signature on a note card there. Nothing too interesting about that piece, other than the fact that it is a hand signature from one of the most infamous serial killers of all time. But if you look above it, I got two items that I actually haven't even gotten a chance to frame yet because I just received them. But that is a fork and a spoon that came directly from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment where the crimes were committed.
Do you feel weird or anything having, I mean, that, because, you know, for people that don't know, this is a guy who was a murdering cannibal, right. And he, like, you know, I noticed you also have a piece by the vampire up there, and I think right. I heard an interview with him. He said, like, once you have a taste for human meat, it's like you almost don't want anything else. How creepy is that?
So like two cannibal pieces right next to each other there. As far as owning them, I don't feel like a crazy energy or anything from him. I know some people are more sensitive to that type of.
Well, I know Martin said he cleanses or he burns sage for every piece he brings in. And
yeah, I mean that some people do that. I've personally never really had those types of feelings of energy towards them. I am fully aware of who that belonged to and who signed that piece and who painted all these paintings. And a lot of people misconstrue what I have here. A lot of people think that this is some sort of idolization.
Yeah, or a shrine, maybe,
or a
even
shrine or something like that to these monsters. And I'll make it really clear here, and people are going to think what they think, and at the end of the day, I really, truly don't give a shit because I don't know you, but this is not me condoning the actions of these people and what they did. I know what they did was wrong. I know what they did was atrocious. For me, this has always just been a passionate subject. True crime has just been something that I've been into for more than half of my life. And owning these pieces, to me, it's history. It's a very morbid history. But other than that, there's really not a lot more to it than just having a fascination with the stories, with the cases, and with the psychology behind. So this is the first letter that I ever received from David Berkowitz when I wrote him. I wrote to a few different serial killers.
Son of Sam?
Son of Sam, yes. I wrote to him a few times, and then right around COVID, when that hit, I stopped hearing from him, as I did a few of the other serial killers. I don't know if they were just not getting the letters anymore because of all the health restrictions in there. But me and David wrote back and forth a couple times. This was the first letter that he ever sent to me. It's written out on a typewriter, and he hand signed it at the bottom. Basically, it was his response to me introducing myself to him. And then it goes on to just talk about a bunch of religious shit. David Berkowitz, like a lot of serial killers, was born again and found God in prison. Anybody that's seen the Dahmer show and the new Dahmer documentary, they show how Dahmer became, very religious towards the end and got baptized. A lot of serial killers do that. They find God while they're in prison. Gacy found God while he was in prison. Berkowitz found God while he was in prison. Gary Ridgway, same thing. But when he sent me this letter, and I don't really know where they are, I think they're packed away in a box, but he sent me a bunch of little religious pamphlets, right?
Wow.
And one of them had him on the front of it holding a Bible. And it was like a cropped image of his mugshot, and then him holding a Bible, and it said "Son of Sam" with Sam crossed out and God written under it. So Son of God.
Very interesting. Look at that. That's got to be crazy to go out to your mailbox, open it up one day, and you have a freaking letter from David Berkowitz.
Right. And that was actually, he was the first serial killer that I ever tried to correspond with, and he was the first one that responded because I had actually written several of them at the same time, and he was the first one that responded. I also wrote Bill Suff. He was a California serial killer. He killed 13 sex workers out there during the I think the late 80s, early 90s, and he's in San Quentin on death row. And I wrote to Elmer Wayne Henley. For those who don't know who he is, he was involved with crimes that were very similar to Gacy's. Actually, he had a partner named Dean Corll, and Dean Corll never actually saw jail. He killed himself before being caught. But Elmer Wayne Henley pretty much went to jail, caught most of the rap of everything, even though Dean Corll was like the ringleader for the whole thing. But yeah, so I've written to a few guys that I never got responses from. Dennis Rader, BTK, he was one that never wrote me back. But
I did notice in the very bottom of the last paragraph, he basically, like you said, he's asking for redemption.
Right.
Or he's basically just saying I'm hoping that I can be forgiven, and so it's I guess if you're going to get something, at least it's nice to see it's not psychotic rambling still.
Yeah, it's just religious ramblings at this point. So this is the most recent piece that I acquired, and this was something that I've been looking to get my hands on for a long time. This is a handwritten letter from Ted Bundy.
Dated 1986.
So roughly 3 years before he was executed. He was executed in 89. And this letter is pretty interesting. It talks about his execution being pushed out indefinitely. And it goes on to talk about a lot of religious stuff like we were just talking about with these serial killers finding God.
Very grateful for your Christian concern.
Yep, exactly. He has a little Bible quote down here at the end of page 1. And then on the back, he kind of just he actually starts talking about how Jesus has forgiven him of his sins. And it's a little cryptic because Bundy never really confessed until the very, very end when he was just trying to buy himself some more time before he got executed. And so it makes you wonder if the sins that he's referring to in this letter are his crimes. And
look at the very last line when he signs it.
Yep.
Through that love, which is Jesus, Ted.
Yep.
Wow.
And then at the end, he just asks for some supplies, some envelopes and stamps.
Crazy collection, man.
And
wow.
A lot of these serial killers that if people correspond with them, you know, they expect you to send them money and send them supplies and stuff, and they act like you're doing them that they're doing you a favor by responding to you, and they're always trying to get something out of you. That's what I have found through my own correspondence with them and through talking to other people that have corresponded with them.
The manipulative nature never leaves sometimes.
There's a serial killer named Keith Hunter Jesperson. He was known as the Happy Face Killer, and his artwork has been very popular. He actually does some really, really impressive colored pencil drawings, and he's one of those where it's like you write him, and his first response back to you is just like, hey, this is how much I need you to send me before I actually respond. That kind of thing. Or I need you to send me supplies or put this on my commissary, that kind of thing. So they try to get a lot out of you.
He's actually a free man.
Oh, Nico. Yeah, Nico is actually a friend of mine. I met Nico through my company several years ago, and he has been out of prison for quite some time now.
What's his name?
And Nico Clo. And he does paintings like these. He's got his own YouTube channel. He does a lot of different types of artwork. He does true crime.
He was known as what? The Vampire?
The Vampire of Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. He was a cannibal and a grave robber from France. And yeah, he's been out, and he's actually, you know, it's
hopefully reformed.
A lot of people I'm sure gonna be like, oh, that's weird that you're friends with the guy, but Nico's actually a really good guy. He's done a shirt design for me. And he's very prevalent in the true crime community right now. And I've never met anybody that's got a bad thing to say about the guy as far as who he is now versus who he was back when his crimes were committed. So you can find his YouTube channel, you can find his Instagram. He makes some pretty cool stuff, and he's a very talented painter as well.
All right, I want to thank Linda Riley for becoming my newest Patreon. And I know these last two videos were not what we normally do, but it was a little different and pretty fascinating, I thought. So thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time. Have a great night. Goodbye.